Welcome to EndNote 21, What to Know About Libraries. This class is brought to you by the Research Medical Library. Before we get started, I want to mention the importance of getting the library right up front. Many EndNote performance issues are caused by problems with the library. And the integrity of a library directly impacts the Cite While You Write tool and its ability to perform well. The Cite While You Write tool is the piece of EndNote that works with your word processing program and allows you to insert in-text citations and create the bibliography for your paper. And oftentimes, performance issues will present themselves during the writing process in the form of various error messages. So it's important that you create, save, and use your library to avoid performance issues and potentially loss of your work. I should say create, save, and use your library appropriately, which is what we're going to cover in this class today. Some important points about libraries. First up, EndNote users can create multiple libraries, but we recommend creating just one library or as few as possible. And this is to minimize confusion between libraries. This can get kind of hairy, especially when it comes to the writing process. Keep in mind that an EndNote library can hold up to 1 million references, although I would not recommend 1 million references. But EndNote does guarantee 50,000 references with full text file attachments without any slowdown or other performance issues. Also important to know that a library is not just a single file. It has an associated data folder. So when you create an EndNote library, it creates two parts, a .enl file and a .data folder. And both parts are required for EndNote to operate. Let me show you my file explorer, and I'll show you what this looks like. When you create your EndNote library, you have the .enl file, as I just mentioned. And so that's going to be, for example, here, this test library. And then the associated data folder, the name is going to match, is here. So you can see both of these parts are required for the EndNote library to work. The data folder is essentially the library structure. It's also important to mention that these have to be saved to the same location. We're going to talk about saving in just a minute. I recommend, I can't recommend strongly enough that once you create and save these files that you don't move them around. If you do, for some reason, have to move them around, you have to move both files. Both files have to be in the same location. Also, if you're going to move them, please don't copy them and paste them somewhere. Just move them from one location to another. So you would want to cut them and paste them. Okay, next up, by default, EndNote names a library My EndNote Library, which is generic and not helpful. I see this happen a lot where people will create multiple libraries, and a lot of the time they don't realize they're creating multiple libraries. And so they end up with all of these files called My EndNote Library, and they don't know which is which. They don't know which library is holding which set of references. They don't know which library they last used to write their paper the last time they were working on it. So my EndNote library is just, it's not helpful at all. In fact, it complicates and confuses things. So when you create a library, you want to make sure that you rename the library. You're given this option. And so you can name it whatever you want. Just make sure that you name it something unique and something identifiable. Also, once you name a library, do not rename the library unless you name, so first you have to not only rename the EndNote library, the file, the .enl file, you also have to rename the associated data folder, and you have to rename them in exactly the same way. So it's space sensitive, it's case sensitive, it has to be an exact match. Otherwise, the library will not operate. So I just recommend once you've named it, don't rename it. And then finally, and probably most important, is never save libraries to OneDrive. We say this all the time. EndNote and OneDrive are not compatible. EndNote says this, and this is the message that we deliver also. OneDrive is a file syncing service, and so EndNote just doesn't work with those types of services. This also includes Google Drive and iCloud. Also, for some of us, the way I understand things, if I understand them correctly, um, this PC and some of the elements that nest under this PC, pictures, videos, documents, these are a duplication of OneDrive, or OneDrive is a duplication of of these folders. I'm not sure which way it works, but they're a duplication. And so we don't, again, want any EndNote files touching OneDrive. So we recommend that you just save your EndNote libraries to your network drive, okay? And I'll bring up again just to be clear. So for me, your structure here, depending on your operating system, might look a little bit different. But for me, I actually pin my network drive here, but you can see this is my network drive, and this is where you want to save your EndNote libraries. Okay, so if you're not sure, this happens a lot. If you're not sure whether you have a library and you need to find out, or if you do have a library but you don't remember where you saved it, EndNote is a unique file type, so that .enl that I mentioned, and that lets you easily search for it and find it among your files. So I have a screenshot here. It's pretty straightforward. You just want to open your File Explorer, select the location to search. For most of us, we have these three like main locations: OneDrive, this PC, or your network drive. So you would select the location you want to search. In the top right, there is a search bar. You can type in .enl, and that's going to show you if any EndNote files are in that location. You'll also see sort of a snippet of where that file is located, but you also have a menu. If you right click on the file, you should have an option to open the file location, and this is going to show you exactly where the file is located. So that will help you identify whether or not you have any EndNote libraries, and if you do, where they are. You can also set a default library to kind of help um, minimize any sort of confusion, especially if you are going to be someone that is going to maintain multiple libraries. You can designate which library EndNote opens, or you can tell EndNote to ask you every single time you launch it to identify which library you want open. I have some instructions here, but I will bring up my EndNote program and show you what that looks like. So we're going to go to Edit and Preferences. And on the left-hand side, you're going to choose Libraries. There's a drop-down menu here. You can choose Open the most recently used library, open the specified library, prompt to select a library, or do nothing at all. Just for me and my workflow, what works best is to open the specified library because I mostly work from one training library. And so that's what I choose. And then I add the library here. You'll see whatever specified library you want to open will be listed here. You can remove those libraries. You can also change this preference anytime you want to whatever works best for you. And then we're going to click on OK, and that's it. So for me, every time I launch EndNote, this is the library that's going to open for me. Doesn't mean that I can't open another library. I can. You can have multiple libraries open at once. I'm just going to go to File and Open Library to open whatever library I would want to have open. Okay, so I was just talking about EndNote libraries on OneDrive, and that's a big no-no. So if you have a library saved to OneDrive, right, you didn't know, and now you know, you can rescue that library from OneDrive. You don't want to work from a library that is saved to OneDrive. So here's some easy steps here. You're going to create, there are a couple of different ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you or share with you what I think is the most simple and straightforward, the easiest way to do this, to rescue a library from OneDrive. So you would want to create a new library and make sure when you create that new library that you rename it and that you save it to your network drive. You would then use EndNote's copy feature to move references from the old library, the one on OneDrive, to the new library. And then once you've done that, you want to make sure that you delete the library and its associated data folder from OneDrive. And I have, I believe, let's see, I have some instructions here for you to refer back to. I'll show you though, in EndNote to create a new library, you're going to go to File, File and New. And here's where the important steps happen. So first, on the left-hand side, you want to make sure that you're saving to your network drive, right? We're going to select that. And then again, you want to rename your library. So it's not just the generic My EndNote library. So name it whatever you like, and then you can click on save, okay? I'm not going to do that. I have a new library open, and so I'll show you. Once you do that, though, EndNote is going to open the new library for you, and it's going to be a blank slate. So here's what the new library looks like. Let me just confirm that that is sharing. Okay, great. So here's your new library. Again, you can have both of these libraries open. So we're going to go to the library in the back. This is, let's call this my old library, the library that's on OneDrive. And I can select the references that I would like to move. I can select them individually, or I can select multiple references. I can do a Control A to select everything. We're going to go to References and choose Copy References To. And one of the options will actually be the library, the new library that you have open. So you would select that library to copy the references to that library. Once you do that, again, you want to go back and delete the old library and its data folder from OneDrive. Okay, I also want to show you just what I'm going to call the anatomy of a library. So like once you get your library set up, it's saved in a secure location, you've got a great name for your library, just so you understand sort of the parts of a library. It's divided into three main sections. On the far left, or the far left column, this is your groups panel. The middle column where your references are displayed is the library panel. And on the far right is some different previews, and this is your reference panel. And then this is further divided into two halves. The top half is a preview of information about the reference that you have selected. It's going to show you some bibliographic information, the abstract. It also allows you to edit the reference or to view the PDF that might be attached to the reference. The bottom half shows you the reference styled in whatever output style you have selected. And you have a little menu here. You can see this in the screenshot that lets you choose between different output styles. So let's talk about organizing a library. I mentioned at the top, you can, instead of creating multiple libraries, a lot of times people will create multiple libraries to manage different projects. So like they'll create a library for every paper, every project, every faculty member. And we really recommend that you try not to do that. If you have to do that, you can. But if you're going to manage one library, you can still organize a library in a way that lets you separate things, right? So you can use EndNote's group feature to isolate and organize references based on faculty member or project or paper. EndNote uses a group structure. It's a hierarchy, and so group sets sit at the top of the hierarchy, and groups sit under the group set. Think of group sets as a superset and groups as a subset. And I'll show that to you in EndNote. It might make a little more sense. I have some instructions here, but I'm going to open up my EndNote program again, and I'll show you here. So you can see I already have some groups on the left-hand side. Also, there are some default groups that are there. They're created by EndNote. You can't do anything about them. Those are mostly up here at the top. These are just default groups. But anything under My Groups, those are groups that you create and customize. So to create a group, you can either right-click on My Groups, or you can go up to the Groups menu. So the first thing that you want to do is create a group set. Okay, so click on Create a Group Set. So a new group set is going to open up, and you can name the group set. I'm just going to name this Test. And then we're going to create a group to nest underneath that. So we're going to right-click on our group set and choose Create Group. And let's see here. Then I'm going to create another group. Okay. And then to move references into a group, okay, we're going to go to our All References, where we can find all of our references in the library. And to move references into a group, all you have to do is select them and drag. you can see the number will change. So it will display that I have one paper in Project X. I can choose multiple references to drag. Let me unselect this. So I would select the references and drag them over. So now in Project X, I have one paper. In Project Y, I have 4 papers. If I wanted to see everything that I had in Project X and Project Y, I would click on the superset, so the group set test. If I just wanted to see things that I had in the subset Project X, I would select that. And just the subset of Project Y, I would select that. Okay. The other organizational tool that you can use is relatively new to EndNote. I can't remember if it came out with 20 or 21, but it's something called tags. So these tags let you label and color code references. Again, I have some instructions here, but this is really easy to do. You can see I already have some tags. Those are going to appear over here on the left-hand side. What I recommend doing is creating your tags first. So we're going to click on tags up at the top. And this is a lot like the categories that you can create in your Outlook email. So we're going to choose create a tag, and this box is going to pop up and we can name the tag whatever we want. So what am I going to name this tag? I'm just going to name it after my dog. And then you can choose a color. So I'll choose blue and then create the tag. And you'll see the tag appear now in your tags area over here on the left-hand side. But I can go into my references and I can assign tags to the reference. There are a couple of different ways to do that. So I'm going to select this first reference here. You can see over in the reference panel, there's a button that says manage tags. So I can do it this way. Or I can right click and I can also choose manage tags here. And then I can choose the tag I want to assign. So I'll choose the one I just created. You can also add multiple tags to a single reference. So I could also add test and click on OK. And now I can go to my tags and I can see anything that I have tagged with Ranger. There's the reference that I just tagged, and I also tagged it with test. So I would select test and I can see anything I've tagged with test. So that's how tags work. I find that these are helpful for me just because of the color coding. It just helps my eye easily find what I'm looking for, opposed to kind of reading through some text with your groups. And depending on how many groups you've created, like how busy this left column can become. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to cover is the deduplication tool. EndNote does have a feature that lets you remove duplicate references from a library. You can either compare duplicate references side by side, or you can remove them without reviewing them. The side by side lets you inspect them very carefully, like each data field. You can see that in the screenshot here. So there could be one reference that has a data field that's empty, but the other reference has that data plugged in. And that can be for lots of different reasons, but most likely due to wherever you grabbed this reference from. So whatever resource this reference came from. And then you can choose which reference you would like to keep, and EndNote will just keep pushing you forward to the next duplicate until you've finished. Now, if you don't want to do this, you can close this duplicate window. And when you do that, all of the duplicate references will be highlighted in green, and you can use your delete button to delete the duplicate references. So let me show you in my EndNote library. I'm not sure, I should have set this up beforehand if I have any duplicates. But we're going to go to library and find duplicates. And it's going to search. So here it is. It's showing me the comparison, and it's showing me some of the differences. So in this case, you can take a look at the author field. Over here on the left-hand side, the author is showing me last name and first initial, whereas on the right-hand side, this is giving me author's last name and full first name. In the journal field, I'm getting on the left-hand side a journal abbreviation, and on the right-hand side, I'm getting the full journal title. And we can continue to move down and look at this record to see any other differences. So on the left-hand side, this reference has some keywords added to it. The other does not, so that's great. Also, the abstract here, no abstract for the duplicate reference that we're viewing on the right. And you can continue to review those details, and then you can choose which reference you would like to keep. Um, for me, just because I guess more information is better. And in this case, there's keywords in an abstract, so I would probably keep this reference. But if you did not want to do that and work through each of the references, each of the duplicates, because you might have tens of duplicates, right? You can close this window just by using the X. And what we should see is the window that you're seeing here. So I can see the duplicate references. So the duplicate is highlighted, and I can just use my delete key to delete this reference, or sorry, this duplicate. So I'm going to just choose delete. And now I'm left with just the one reference. And that's how we can deduplicate. I just had the one duplicate reference. That's good. And that is everything that I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions. Please unmute your mic and ask, or drop it in the chat. It's also okay if there are no questions now. Questions might come later as you begin to work, so feel free to reach out to me directly. You can email me with any of your EndNote questions. So that's everything that I have for you guys today. Thank you very much for joining us. Be on the lookout for that email coming from me with the class materials and the recording. In the meantime, check out the library's website, and we'll have more EndNote stuff coming up in March. And I will see you next time.